Welcome, golf fans, pursuers of knowledge in the Almighty Dollar. This is your golf guru bringing you the 2023 RBC Heritage. This is my preview show where I'm going to give you all the information you need to start thinking about who you might want to play from a DFS side. Or, of course, the main focus is on the betting, trying to get this out to you guys early so you can get those bets in before, well, maybe some of the odds start to go down. And so with that said, I'm going to cover also, we got to talk about the Masters. So I'm going to give you a recap on that. But I'm going to try to keep it kind of slim. And I'm going to give you all the custom stat models. And like I said, I'm going to tell you who I've already got money on from the betting side. So first and foremost, thank you for stopping by. Give me about 30 to 40 minutes and we'll get through all this information and let's go talk a little golf. Okay, so I think everybody had a lot of opinions, especially in the social world, about the Masters, and I'll kind of give you mine, but I thought it was a great event. There was sometimes that because of the stops and starts and all that, maybe from even a DFS showdown perspective was a little tough. There was some viewing times that, you didn't get to see. Of course, the leaders with Rahm and Koepka when they teed off first few holes, even if you were on the Masters app, unless you went clicked on them and watched shot by shot. It was great to see John win. It was a very emotional, as you could see at the end. It was a great, when he got the jacket, kind of great to hear him speak on everything. But there was so many different elements between the withdrawals and the live guys, and there was quite a bit. And then, I'll talk a little bit about even, where I kind of fared in my picks. So kind of keep moving through this. So if you're interested, I thought, this is some of the stuff I saw on the Golf Channel that I pulled that I thought was kind of interesting. So, Rahm is a hunter. And of course, he was down technically, you say 4 strokes when he started Sunday morning, right with 30 holes to go. But it shows, back when he won the Farmers, he was three shots down. The American Express back in 2018, he was 2. The BMW US Open, of course, the crazy Colin Morikawa meltdown where he came back from 7 shots down. And then, of course, between him and Brooks, he was technically 2 shots down when he started the 4th round. So, again, it seems like he likes to be in that position. I'm not saying Rahm can't hold a lead by any stretch of the imagination, but I just thought that was kind of interesting when he's trailing in the final round, how he kind of tracks guys down. Of course, stroke gain data wasn't that easy, readily available, especially through Fantasy National. Now, I know Data Golf had it, and, we were seeing some flight tracker, but we weren't getting that information. But he was tee to green. He led the field. Funny enough, I know for at least the first 3 rounds, Scheffler led the field. He ended up in second, and Scotty, who was one of my top 5 picks, just couldn't putt. He was last in the field putting. If he could have just broke even on putting, I think the guy would have still won this tournament, and wouldn't change that pick, because of that. I've never seen the guy so far off, and we saw a little bit of it at the match play where he was missing some putts that he typically doesn't do. He was second off the tee, tied for 3rd in greens and reg, and then driving accuracy at T4. So that's a great combination. Also, I think he did pretty well in putting. I don't know where exactly he fared, but from everything that I heard. A couple of guys from the live side I was interested in, right? I picked Patrick Reed. I think he made my top 20. I just don't know if he fell under unsung or wherever he was in. But he was really, and then DJ was also one of the guys I put in my top 20. But I was not on Koepka. Again, it was so hard when you don't get to see these guys play. I don't watch the live tournaments. And yes, he won a tournament right beforehand. But it still wasn't enough for me out of a 48 field for what I still deem as a little bit of a slap and tickle. The one thing that, I guess where my brain kind of forgot about Brooks was Brooks, even on the PGA Tour, right, did not focus when it was just the regular Joe Schmo tournament. The last time that I remember him really seemed like putting a lot of effort in was the waste management. But right, that's where he won his first PGA victory. And of course, he came from behind and won that one because I remember I bet him. I believe he was 40-1 if I remember correctly. We also had the injuries that Brooks had, and there was times, even I think the last Masters he came to, stated that he felt 100%, was feeling great, and I still didn't know where he was at with the injuries. But what we all saw was that looked like the Brooks that we knew from 2018, 2019, when he won all his majors in a very short span. So. And for me, it looked, it was at probably a lot of people, it's hard to see how Brooks was going to, not keep that form. We know typically how he does now. At the 2021 where Phil Mickelson won the PGA, it was him and Louis were trying to chase Phil down. I believe Phil came into a small lead that day. And I felt like for sure that would happen, and it did not. So there you go. And then Phil Mickelson, course history, that's ridiculous. So Phil, I think he's played since 2003? Maybe in past, further than that. I mean, the guy's played Augusta at least almost 20 times, and he's only missed a cut twice. and had, of course, in his earlier days, had a bunch of, top five finishes. Of course, he's won there 3 times. All that aside, it was really hard to see. I did all the kind of digging up of what I could on Phil. So if you look at his season in 2022, he missed every cut. That includes 2 of the majors. And the only thing was he played, of course, the Tournament of Champions because he won the 2021 PGA Championship. He got to play in that. He ended up 30th out of a field of 40. So if you take his 2022 season, all miscuts, right? And then if you looked at even what he did on Live over the totality of 2022 and 2023, the best showing he had, again, out of a field of 48 guys, and if you look at the Live Tour early days, it was a pretty rough field. His best showing was a top 10. All the rest were like 40s and 35s. I went over that in the preview show. So, that's where you're trying to figure out, well, I don't care how much you know the course and how great you feel there. If you can't hit the shots, you can't hit the shots. So I always feel like there's got to be a balance, a little bit of recent form with, course history, where he kind of, for me, blew that out of the water. And of course, also had just an amazing Sunday. So I tipped the hat to Phil. I literally was talking to somebody earlier on this. If the Masters was coming up Thursday and I just knew what he did, would I maybe play him in DFS? Yes, but would I bet him outright? Nope. I don't even know. Like, I still wouldn't probably put him in the top 20. I just can't still wrap my head around it. But that's that. And then Patrick Reed, like I said, I knew, of course, past champion. He does well there. Hit a chip on his shoulder. He also just took Rory almost to a playoff at a DP World event at a pretty strong field, very recently. So with Patrick, I could make that leap. With Phil, I just couldn't. And then Brooks, just out of sight, out of mind. And like I said, I knew what everybody else did, that he had the win coming in. He had a win in 2022. But again, my Live Tour experience, or where I rate that, is so minimal compared to even just a regular PGA event. That's my own personal, with no cut, 48 guys, 54 holes, wearing shorts, blaring the music. I just don't see it. So, and also I looked at their past winners, and it's, every guy that's their first event, they win, and then they kind of go away, like Danny Lee or Charles Howe or Schwartzel, I think was like their first winner. So anyways, it is what it is. Some positives we'll talk about that I did pick was this guy right here, Sahith Theegala. I talked about on the betting show that, hey, this, even though he's a rookie, he was one of the only guys that I was playing that's never played the course, at least, in a professional event. And he really had a great Sunday and ended up, top 9th alone, which is pretty impressive for a first-timer. And I liked it because I know he leads, at least last I saw, he was leading the PGA in scrambling on this year. Also, the guy, I've watched him, he works the ball. He's very creative. Everything he just kind of said that it should make sense that the guy can get very hot and pretty good putter. So that, I like that call. I was pretty impressed with that. And then I also told you guys, if you are going to go a little kooky, as I stated, and try to create a very unique DFS lineup, and you're going to pick an amateur, Sam Bennett is your guy, and that's who I went with. And I did have some lineups with him, and definitely they were doing pretty well until, I had Day and some of those lineups who just crashed. A lot of guys just fell apart on Sunday, even though the weather I felt like was perfect and the wind was a little bit, and also some gettable pins on Sunday. So it was kind of interesting to see some of the guys just struggle, even like a Victor Hovland, who actually played pretty good in the weather and just didn't translate to the afternoon on Sunday. And then, of course, you had that Gordon Sargent. What was the most interesting was he had all the hype, and literally his betting odds were just getting bet down because, a few people said, practice with him and just said, he's an amazing ball striker. He's got all this distance and speed. And so everybody just jumped all over that. I'm like, well, wait a minute. This guy won the USAM, and if you watched a bit of his Texas A&M career, the kid's a player now. He's not the longest, but he's got distance, but he's, good all around player. And so that, of course, at one time, right, he had, I think, second alone for a bit there, and, owns the 36 hole amateur record, if I remember correctly. So, and then the last thing I'll just say is, of course, you had the withdrawals. So I also talked about Will Z. I didn't go nowhere near him. I even tweeted this little clip out that, what I'm seeing, and I've had some back issues that he's dealing with, not maybe at his severity, but I've been there where the pinched disc, and he did not have surgery. I saw somebody say he actually just went and had his second surgery. everything that I heard from him in his camp, that he never went with surgery. He went with just rehab, because once they go in there, if something goes wrong, you could be paralyzed for life, right? And when you start messing with the spine and the nerves there, it's very touchy. So it's going to be very. I already seen. I think he withdrew from the RBC, but I know he probably tried everything he could to play in the Masters, but I wasn't going nowhere near him. A, due to what I've seen since he's trying to make his comeback and, changing his swing. But also, of course, we've also seen what he's been doing with the putter inside of 10 feet or 5 feet even. I'm a huge Will Z fan. I hope that they figure out how to get him back to playing, because he was a huge, asset to the tour, and great to watch. And I was a huge fan of his game. So hopefully he gets back soon. And then, of course, Kevin Na withdrew after 9. So typical Kevin Na. I think he shot a 40. Couldn't stand that Mike Weir was kicking his ass, and he just like, I'm out of here. Louis, of course, I mean, we know he still, deals with the back stuff and whatever. He popped out. And then, I guess Tiger we could touch about. Good on Tiger that, he made the effort. It was great to see him at the Masters. We all knew, looking at the weather, and that walk is one of the hardest walks at Augusta that the PGA ever has. It was like everything stacked against him. And then, of course, the draw that he would have had to come back out on, Sunday early, it all just kind of where I think he was just, and the body was just saying, can't go. I mean, you saw what was going on Saturday. So, all in all, awesome tournament. It was cool to have the live guys, to see Cam Smith, one of my favorites, get to play again. Joaquin Niemann. Like, there's guys, Taylor Gooch, that I really liked on the PGA Tour. And I'm sure I still maybe am a little scorn or bitter that, out of nowhere created this, tour that just offered these guys buyouts, is how I looked at it. And for some of the guys, I didn't care, like the Garcias and the Stinsons and the Poulters, like all those guys. I'm like, awesome, get them out of here, let them go get their money. But once they started grabbing guys like DJ and Brooks and Cam Smith and Neiman, even, my buddy Sebastian Munoz, that stings. Like, guys that you've watched for a long time from their amateur careers up to pro, and know their game so well and what they can do. I mean, from a betting and a DFS side, it stings, but just purely as a fan, it stings. So anyways, that's that. And it was a great Masters, and I'm sure you guys enjoyed it too. Let's move on and switch gears and talk about why we are here, which of course is the RBC Heritage. They are not going too far, just over to Hilton Head, South Carolina, and they would play in the Harbor Town Golf Links, which has hosted the RBC Heritage since 1969. Funny enough, I was looking at this. It's actually been a bunch of telephone companies or whatever, cell companies. It was the MCI, it was the Verizon Heritage. I always had a Heritage, but they had a bunch of different sponsors in the past. Of course, we're talking about a Pete Dye course, also a little bit of Jack Nicklaus thrown in there. It is a par 71, and actually the yardage is, I noticed on a few people, they didn't maybe check the most recent scorecard, but the yardage did go up about 40 yards, and I believe that's on number 7. We'll look at that. It's not a huge thing. It is a par 3 that was not that easy to begin with and just got tougher, but that's where the yardage increase came from. And then we've got ryegrass overseed, and you got rough is also rye, because this tournament has changed some, timings. And so, like we've seen, anywhere that's got Bermuda, they'll put in, so it's not dormant and can die, they'll put in this overseeded POA trivials, which that's what we got for the greens. So the greens are Bermuda, but they will have the POA trivials, which we've seen quite a bit. The player field typically is somewhere around 132, but because this is an elevated event, we've got quite a few more guys that have qualified and, of course, want to play in this thing because there's a lot of money on the line. I've already seen, I mentioned Will Z has withdrawn, which, that was no shocker. And then also, I think I just saw Rory McIlroy has withdrawn. I'm expecting more to withdraw. I mean, I think they get one, bow out. And so, like Rahm, it'd be shocking. And I actually have a video that I'm going to play for you. Played after the breakdown about Jordan talking about, how burned out he was going into the Masters. And I'd have to guess a lot of these guys, because of all these elevated events, these guys are playing a ton of golf in a short time. Hence, the match play was right beforehand. And you had a lot of guys that no way they would have played that match play. And that's a lot of golf, right? I mean, I figure out the math, but you could play hundreds of holes, and, depending on how far you go in it. So like the Schefflers, Rory, you had Cam Young, and of course Burnsy, who made it to the Final Four. Those guys played almost like a tournament and a half. And I honestly, I didn't talk about this in the Masters thing, but it was something I was thinking of. And I tweeted out that it wouldn't shock me that maybe if you wanted to look at an advantage from the live side, it wouldn't make, wouldn't be shocking that, well, those guys had to play 3 golf tournaments all year from in 2023. And man, you had all that time to prepare and practice and get ready for the Masters, where, all the PGA guys have been just, weekend after weekend and playing a ton of golf. And so check out the video. I'll put it up. It's a quick little snippet about Jordan talking about that. Back to where we're at. Historical cut line here is somewhere between +1 and under, 3 under. Of course, last year your winner was Jordan Spieth, who I've stated this multiple times, shooting 13 under. That I don't think he won that tournament. I think the other guys lost that tournament. And to back it up from a stroke game perspective, he literally lost strokes putting and still won the tournament. And like I said, the guys that were close, like Lowry, and I'll talk about that a little more down lower, but just kind of lost it. You got Stewie Sink, who, if I remember right, I think blitzkrieged the field at 19 under. And was funny was this is where, sometimes you got to look a little further back than, recent, but I think he won here, which would have been the MCI Heritage back like in 04. Now, he also has some pretty decent course history here, but I mean, that wasn't even relevant. It maybe not even relevant then, but just that he had won on this course before didn't really come into view. Webb Simpson at 22 under, CT Pan, first time winner and only was at the RBC Heritage. I think that was when I think Lowry was in the mix, Kuchar, and also DJ. And DJ was leading by a bit, I believe, going into Saturday, and it fell apart. And then you had a first time winner, Sadoshi Kadair, at 1200, guy that you've probably heard a little bit if you've been listening to me for a while. That was, we won a bit of money on him for first round leaders. When he would have the early tee times. But a little different. A lot of first time winners happened here. And the field typically at this event was not that strong. Now, if you look back at 2020, because the COVID shutdown happened, right? The Players was when it shut down. And then I think the first tournament was the Charles Schwab. And I believe this was in September, and it was the third tournament. Well, all the guys were, just, chomping at the bit to play, get FedEx points, all that stuff. And so you had a really amazing field. But other than that, I mean, if you look at past champions in the fields, they've always been pretty weak. You'd have, a couple guys in the top 20, but I think we have, I don't remember now, but almost like, the best of the best, except I don't think Matsuyama. Now you don't have Rory pulled out and Will Z. Greens, some of the smallest greens on tour, maybe the smallest greens on tour. I forget, between Pebble Beach, maybe Pebble Beach. It's a little bit smaller, but they're 3,700 square feet and they're very flat. Just in short, I mean, a couple things you can make out of that right up. You don't have to be a very good putter here, which hence Jordan Spieth, not saying he's a bad putter, but at the time he never made a putt over 8 feet the whole weekend, I believe. I think I state that somewhere down here. It's with those kind of small greens, it's all about right approach or around the green. And then the next thing, acres of fairway, 22. Now, if you remember at Augusta, it was in the 70s, which, that's a ton of fairway. But here, which, again, back to Phil Mickelson, that guy, but he didn't need it. He hit a ton of fairways, but that guy used, if you watch him, couldn't keep it in the ballpark, was spraying it all over the place, where Augusta allows you to do that, where this course doesn't allow you. Now, what's unique about the RBC Heritage in Harbor Town, and I've been doing this, I've had a lot of success at this event. One of my, more favorite events. My mom lives literally, I don't know, a 10-minute walk from the course. And I've actually attended this event a couple times. Pretty cool. They shoot the cannons off, right? They have like a kickoff session when the guys, whoever the past winner hits a drive where the cannon goes off, which blows your ears out. But neither here or there. Where I was going with all that is this course actually had the Hurricanes back in 2019 timeframe, which really opened this course up quite a bit. And they did a lot of tree trimming. And so what we saw last year, yes, we had a stronger field, but the guys that, hit it really long off the tee and really good ball strikers fared very well at this course. I think if I remember, you had Joaquin Neiman and Cam Young, who came out with like the leaders, at least round one, round two. Cam Davis was up there. Like, we can go through the list, but it was totally different from the guys that we used to really focus on, were, more the strategic plotters, because you still have to be on the right side of the fairway, but it wasn't as tight where you could get in serious trouble off the tee. So anyways, I think it's changed a little bit, and even how I have to think about this tournament and course has changed because of the hurricanes that hit there and, took down. Now, I know they have added some trees I saw within recent times, but you know, it was totally different than what it used to be. You got 54 sand bunkers. You've got a ton of water, 18 holes. Water comes into play. So a lot like what, you know, we were seeing down in the Florida swing, like a TPC Swallowgrass or the Honda RSM, which that wasn't in the Florida swing, but is another course that compares. These greens don't run super fast. So I always kind of measure off like a 12, 13 would be your really fast. They run around 11 and a half. So I'd call that more medium fast if you're curious. Course defense, we talked a bit about this, right? It's tight tree line, but not as tight as it used to be. And again, it is a coastal course, and wind can blow. And then, of course, you got the water, you got the bunkers, and scrambling, just like what we saw at the Masters, is definitely something that shows up as a must-have. You must be good at. I think past notes I've hit a ton. I think the one thing I didn't mention was that players one putt 44% of the time, so it was kind of interesting. Of course, you go from the green jacket to the tartan jacket, you know, that crazy plaid jacket you saw on the cover screen that George Spieth was wearing. Also, something that's neat, they got that crushed, I guess you pronounce it coquina shells. It's like that pink shells that follow the rough line, so you can hit shots out of there. Of course, it was Cantlay who, you know, lost, I believe, in a playoff to Spieth. And I think, like I said, Jordan's longest putt he made for the week was 8 feet. So again, back to his putting. And then Lowry, literally, like I said, gave away. So he had a double on 14, which I believe is that par 3, where he tried to keep it safe on the left side and then literally chipped it, you know, on the green and went back into the water. So he totally could have just went at the flag and done the same thing. So he had that issue, and then of course missed an 8-foot putt on 17, and then on 18 he had 166, I guess, going in, and you know, ended up short in the sand. So what I remember watching very close, because I believe I did have money on Shane Lowry, which I think a lot of people are hyping up to bet this time around. It was just like he just fell apart on the last few holes. And then, so now I also stated, this is from last year, that look at elite ball strikers who suck at putting. You know, like what I was kind of showing up was like the Aaron Wise, Cam Davis, even Jordan Spieth. I mean, was pretty rough at this time putting. And then Agrio in 2021 had a good finish here. All right, so that's I'm going to play that quick Jordan Spieth video about just the whole, you know, kind of these guys being wore out. And the reason why I think it's, you know, a bit relative is a bit of the narrative I'm trying to figure out. I think I'm going to build some lineups when I do DFS side. And even from a betting side, of guys that did not play in the Masters, I think that, you know, some of the guys that are coming from that, it's a lot. They played a lot before that, and then the mental grind and what they just went through on that weekend. I'd be very interested to see how this all plays out. But that's one narrative that I might look at when I build some DFS lineups. So check out this video, and then we'll go take a look at the course.
Anything else? I think I played way too much golf into this. I came in mentally fatigued, and then you overwork this week every year, and I played way too much golf in the last. I mean, this is 8 out of 10 weeks, so I need to change my schedule up going forward to be a little sharper this week. I think that has a lot to do with it, and then just
okay. So just a real quick overview, not doing a flyby, but you can kind of see. It's kind of funny. I think if I remember right, you want to be on the right side of a lot of these fairways, whereas the way it works out. I mean, definitely on 10, 11, that makes sense. On 12, I think you would want to, I mean, I guess it doesn't matter, but as much on there. But you can see this is showing kind of the trees. You got a lot of sand. You got a lot of water. Here's 14 where Shane Lowry. And a lot of the guys, especially when they put the pin over on the right, like they'll aim for the left of the green if they end up a little far left. But this green slopes towards the water, and it can be very fast. You know, 15, you want to be on the right side. 16, you got to be, you know, at least, well, or you can see you have to hit a pretty good sized draw. 17, you can see water again. 18, and I've got some pictures of these that we'll take a look at, is a 2-shot hole. Toughest hole on the course, if I remember right. It's like 470, and you're doing everything just to hit this little area here. But yeah, all this is represented as a lot of water, a lot of sand, some really long sand along the fairways. It's a tough course. You know, like I said, I mean, yeah, Stewie Singh shot that 2200, but I would expect, and it's all dependent on weather, somewhere in the higher teens, you know, 15 underish is where I would guess that if I had to pick a number for where this tournament will end. Again, weather dependent. And then here's a better example to see that T-ball. I mean, I've seen guys, you know, hit it, suck it back off. I think Shane Lowry was somewhere over in here when he went to chip on it. And he wasn't the only one that this happened to, chip on it, and it literally just runs off the green and into the water. So that would be par 3, 14. And then here's number 18, of course, the iconic kind of candy stripe lighthouse. And again, this is the driving area. So, you want to land the drive anywhere in here, you're good. I think that gives you somewhere like 170 in. You hit it 300. And then, of course, again, you're dead though. And it's kind of a cool finishing hole because a lot of trouble can happen on this hole. I think I mentioned Lowry ended up in this sand trap here and you get up and down. But there's guys that birdie. And if you do birdie this hole, it's not the easiest. So as I said, it's one of the toughest holes. You definitely are gaining some strokes on the rest of the field. Okay, so to really quickly look at the scorecard here, I mentioned one hole that did change, and that would be this guy, I believe, right here, the par 3 number 7, as in distance, and I'll show you that in a second. I'm just looking again. I always kind of look at this to see if there's any advantages of from a showdown perspective for you. Honestly, I don't see anything. I mean, it's like 1 and 2 are kind of easier, but it's not. I mean, you got one of the tougher holes on 18 you would have to go through. So nothing from a showdown perspective. Some longer par 4s. I mean, we'll get into the custom stat model, but again, you got 3 par 5s that you want to score on. The easier ones are on the front. The number 15's got a little more length, but definitely gettable. And let's see from an eagle perspective, yeah. So the second hole you play is the easiest, and you better get a birdie there. So half the field birdies there, and then there's the eagle chance is the highest there. And then as I was talking about number 7, so yeah, 217. So I think I did the math. It was like 30 yards. I don't know where the little bit, because when I did total math, looked like 40 yards was added to the last year's numbers. But you can see here they're playing it at 72-13, not what was previous 7-1-8 something or whatever it was. So just side note, that's it. And like I said, you can see the par 3s are also a part of the defense of this course. 192, 198, 217, 200. So with that, like I said, that is something that we definitely want to take a look at. Who does well at that? When I think of long par 3s, I always think of Billy Horschel and Adam Scott, but maybe for a while there, they were running pretty hot with doing well there. Okay, so I mentioned from a custom stat model, this is just tell you that the stroke gain areas that I'm focusing on, as always mentioned, this gets more redefined as each year goes. Things change, like the course has changed. I think also the field that we've been seeing here at the RBC over the last couple of years has changed. But still, I like good drives. I actually have done 2 models. I'm going to show you guys that. But this was like the model that I feel most comfortable with. And what is good drives is guys that hit the fairway or the first cut and then, have a good shot into the green. Also, approach is king, as it always is. Ball striking, that even came more prevalent last year. Usually it was more about round to green, short game approach, and good drives. But, you'll see that a lot of the shots come in, as I've shown here, 175-200, which means you got to be a good ball striker 25% of the time. Putting is one of the lower ones, again, just because of how small these greens are. A lot of time guys are chipping, and they're pretty simple greens, and then scrambling all the trees out there and pretty tight fairways. You're going to have to get out of trouble at times. Okay, so then to validate, what I always do is look at the past winners and then look at the stroke gain data. And it kind of just, I know this tournament so well, even though, like I said, it has, I think, changed a little bit. But if you look, what would this be, 2021 when Stewart Sink, and then this, 2020? So like here you could kind of see again, not all, Joaquin Niemann, I put him as a great ball striker. Troll Hatton fits in there. Berger is kind of like on that cusp where I think he's very accurate, really good with the irons. Abraham Manser, I'd put him more strategic, but also very good with the irons and off the tee, but not long. Same with Webb Simpson. So if I look at these, at least these top 4, I'd say very accurate off the tee, really good with the irons, and all different levels of putters. I would say all pretty good putters. Webb Simpson at this time was a really good putter. Now, if you look at back in 2021, Stewart Sings actually hits the ball over 300 yards on average. He's got some length in his bat, but he's also very good with that 175-200, at least, especially at this time. Griot, an amazing ball striker, terrible putter. Harold Varner, very long, accurate off the tee, was really good with the irons at this time, but also you typically a horrible putter. Corey Connors. So those guys all fit. And then you get more into the around the green, putting specialists would be a Fitzy and a McNeely. So you could, of course, do it different ways. And then where I actually ended up, and I've got more information for you that came up a little sooner than I thought. But long story short, approaching around the green, it used to be, I always thought, worrying about off the tee, but it's not as crucial if I had to pick the 2 main areas. Then here's some older ones. So I think 2019 and 2018. This shows you back, in the days where it was more plotters. Satoshi Kodaira is very accurate. Pretty good with the iron. Soo Kim, P-Dye specialist. DeChambeau is kind of a quinky dink. Even like I said, DJ at one time was doing well here. And I think at one time this led me to kind of off the tee. But even though this is down, irons show. But around the green, you can say, well, it shows a little of this. I still think it's very important because of how small these greens are. And then we look at the most recent kind of pull. Again, you can see a bunch of red at times at off the tee. So you don't have to be, gaining a ton of strokes here. But pretty much, irons are key. And like I said, you can do it a lot of different ways. But the putter, again, lost 2.5 strokes to the field and you win a tournament. That's very rare. So, again, the tee, the ball striking was pretty good. And then even around the green was straight across the board. And then also even Cam Young, you see gained a ton in ball striking around the green, but not with the putter. And then you can make the argument, well, look at what Kuchar, Fleetwood, and EVR. Funny enough, that's crazy that EVR actually gained 7 strokes here with the putter, because I always think of him as just an elite iron player, kind of rough at times off the tee, but usually not a good putter at all. I'd put him in like the Griot camp. Or even Aaron Wise. Okay, so with all that said, I've actually created, as always, a model, a custom stat model with just focusing on recent form, so the past 24 rounds of golf or 6 tournaments, no filters turned on at all. So this is just looking at the last 6 tournaments these guys played. This is not going to include the match play, and it's not going to include the Masters because we don't have that data. We don't get the shot link data. But with all that said, I went with good drives at 25% weighted, approach at 20, that proximity that comes in 25% of the time at 5, scrambling at 10%, around the green at 10%, short game at 5, kind of tying, putting, and around the green. And then putting at 5, like I said, limited it, but I still want guys that can putt. And then ball striking at 20. Typically the ball striking would be up here, but just the way I think I forgot about to put it in. So with all that said, if you want to know how this kind of worked out, Scotty Scheffler #1, which again, amazing ball striker, and when we did see some issues with the putter even before it got into the Masters. So you kind of got to make that thought process: is that going to carry over now on Sunday? He started to make some putts. John Rahm doing everything great, so no issues there. Max Homa, not the greatest showing it. He also shot 5 or 6 over on Sunday at the Masters. That was kind of sad to see. I was really hoping Max was going to have a good outing at Augusta, and I have no reasoning why, to be honest. I mean, maybe he's still working out how to play that course and how to, know to hit in the certain areas and where to, leave the drives and the sections of the greens and whatever. Funny enough, I don't even know where Tony Finau ended overall. I think he had an okay Masters, but I don't remember what place. But Tony Finau fits right in there. Morikawa, JT, of course, he missed the cut. He also had a terrible flight advantage or disadvantage with having to come back out and, bogeyed 17, 18 to miss the cut, but then, of course, let Tiger Woods in and a few of the live guys. You got Xander Schauffele, Benny Martin, who's been playing really good golf, kind of an interesting bet. I have not pulled the trigger on that one, but more and more been thinking about it. You got Matty Kuchar, who's done really well here. Makes sense. Sungjae M, Terrell Hatton, Patrick Cantlay. Of course, I mentioned that playoff, and it also has a really good past history at the RBC. Adam Hadwin, Justin Rose, and Wyndham Clark. And it's kind of funny when you look at these guys, you could kind of break them into guys that I would want to play back in the day where I felt like it was more of a strategic course. And then now I kind of feel like after what I saw last year, and with, like I said, the changes to the course, that you could also put a ball striking camp together. All right, so if you're curious who's had the best history here at Harbour Town, right? I mean, we saw it show up at the Masters with Phil Mickelson and Patrick Reed. You can even say Jordan Spieth, past champions guy that do well there. It is true, there is horses for courses. And, Webb Simpson, his game, I feel like has shown little glimpses of light, but is your #1 against my model, which, like I said, if you kind of look at where these guys flush out, it makes total sense. Past champion, could have, should have won last year. Shane Lowry could have, should have also won that. Russell Knox is interesting. I mean, he does all the things. It's just the putter typically has been so bad that he just can't win or score. George Speed, Matthew Neesmith, I think is a really interesting bet. But I think he had an issue. He pulled out of the Valspar. And I believe he maybe played at the Valero, missed the cut. Again, this is all off memory, but I don't know. I kind of like Neesmith. I mean, the model typically he's just pretty much elite ball striking. It's just scoring can be a problem, and you can kind of see that right in the the ball striking area, even at a 7. And then when you get to scrambling around the green, and then the putter is typically where it has the issues. Grillo kind of right down the same ballpark with the putter and around the green, but has had good finishes here. CT Pan, one of your past winner, Jim Furyk was like, the Matt Kuchar, like the perfect fit for this course back in the day. But now you got such a, way better field. And again, I feel like the course has been opened up to allow even, longer hitters that are not as accurate. Adam Hadwin, again, fits, I believe, under like the Jim Furyk camp, more of the strategic plotters, good short game, even though that putter rating is not looking too hot. You got Morikawa, again, doesn't hit it as long as some others. Of course, he's not short, but he doesn't hit, he's not hitting at 320, 330. Also the great fit here, but of course you can see what he's been doing on the short game side, a little weak. Joel Damon, didn't even know he was in the field, funny enough. I think that'd be an interesting bet. JR, also a good bet. And then Russ Henley, who I hit yesterday for a top 5 and was really hoping he was going to somehow, magically would win the Masters. But I mean, he's had some decent finishes there. But this course is like a perfect fit for him. Again, he's on Bermuda where he has had success putting, and one of the better iron players, and also hits a ton of fairways. Okay, and if you want to look at it a different way, just quickly look over who's had the best finishes over the past 5 years. Webb Simpson, Kuchar, Cantlay, that's your top 3. JT Poston, who made the cut at the Masters, Shane Lowry, Fitzy. Fitzy actually played pretty decent at the Masters. I didn't notice like what we saw at the Dell match play, and even earlier in the years, I feel like maybe that neck is feeling better. He actually on his presser, I don't know if you saw, he talked about the whole neck thing. So he thought he was getting over it. He's had it before, and then honestly, he said it actually turned in and it started to go all the way down in his arm. It was like way worse. Didn't just go away, and so had to do a ton of therapy. And I think he might even had it looked at and X-rayed and stuff. So it was something that turned into a lot bigger than he thought. He thought it was just a strained neck, which we've all done that. And typically after a day or so, you get over that. You got Billy Ho, Michael Thompson, which we'll talk about him from a betting perspective. CT Pan, Streelman, Grillo, Harmon, Connors, Damon Hatton, Davis, McNeely, Fleetwood, EVR. If you're trying to figure out just purely from who's done really well here over and over at Harbortown. Okay, so I talked about, once, the model that I showed you first, I'm not saying it's a pure strategic plotter model, but it's not really looking at distance and ball striking as heavily. And like I said, last year I was, again, caught off guard a little bit, I'll state, how well ball strikers did here. And so if you're curious, I did this model too. And honestly, where I'm going with this from a DFS perspective, I will build some teams under both camps, and then I'll do like a 3 and 3. I'll mix, because I honestly feel like how it's going to shake out is that you're going to have a few guys that plot their way around, at hit a ton of fairways, good with the irons, good putters, or maybe not as, but just don't have the length, not as the greatest ball strikers. And then, like I said, I think the ball strikers have shown that they can do very well here. So I went driving distance at 20%, fairways gained at 15, ball striking at 20, approach at 25, that proximity from 150 to 175 at 10, and 175 to 200 at 10. So this is, just so you know, this proximity 150 to 175 comes up around 22, 23% of the time. So this always tells you who's the best iron players. These two distances will tell you who's the elite iron players on tour. And out the bet, Scheffler, Morikawa, Gary Woodland, had a really good Masters and actually gained quite a bit with the putter, which is not typical for Gary Woodland. So somebody you could think about, maybe he's found a little bit of magic like we saw the previous year in Florida. I already mentioned Will Z pulled out. Rory, I actually looked at DraftKings, pulled up, the actual whatever, the 250K event just to see, and I didn't see either of those guys even end the DFS. So I think they already pulled those guys out before they did pricing, is my thoughts. But anyways, we got Finau, Rahm, Young, Cantlay, Ricky Fowler, Victor Hovland, Xander, Homa, Hoagie, Connors, Kim, Tom Kim, and then you got Siwoo Kim. Then you got Terrell Hatton and then Benny Martin round out from a ball striking perspective. And I believe I put a couple extras in here because I knew that Will Z and Rory was out. So that's why you'll see, usually I just do the top 15 and you're kind of getting, I don't know, the top 16 or so. All right. And then I always do this whenever we're at a Pete Dye course, just, for shits and giggles, there's the ability to, within Fantasy National, click the little button and it'll tell you the guys who are rated the best against my model on Pete Dye courses. And if you're curious what Pete Dye courses out there, of course, you got TPC Sawgrass, You got Kiowa, where Phil won the PGA. You've got the stadium course at the American Express. Was it La Quinta and the stadium course? That's the Pete Dye is the stadium course. And let me think, what else am I missing? There's TPC River Highlands, which I don't know if that's a perfect fit, which they play the Travelers. I'm probably forgetting a Crooked Tree, but they don't play that anymore. What else is a Pete Dye? I don't know. Doesn't matter. You get the gist. So, with all that said, if you're curious, against my model, who came up number one, Sun Jam again is looking at 24 rounds that they played on those kind of tracks, all Pete Dye. Got M. Lowry counters, Keegan Bradley, Scheffler, Streelman, Kirk, Hovland, Hadwin, Rahm, EVR shows up again, JT, Russ Henley, Patrick Cantlay, and Tom Hoagie are your top 15 guys, or Pete Dye specialists, if you want to say. Kind of shocked that that Mr. Siwoo Kim did not come up on this list. I'm guessing he might be like 16th or 17th. And then I typically do this for you guys. I call it the Iron Man or the proximity of the pin. This is the guys, because very heavily, I think irons are very crucial in this one. And so if you want to know overall out of this field over the last 24 rounds, no filters or past 6 tournaments, who's the best iron player in this field, or best top 15 iron players, I guess I should say. Tom Hoagie, Max Homa, funny enough, Finau, Scheffler, and I say funny enough just because of what happened at the Masters. Tony Finau, Scheffler, Morikawa, Fowler, Rahm, Clark, Xander, Straka, Rory Hatton, Benny Martin, Hovland, Spieth, and Young. And what's interesting to me, Wyndham Clark was not the best iron player for a while, so he's really kind of came on with that. The putter also at times, so I was assuming his putting strokes were, like I said, he's had some good showings on POA, but like I said, always gained off the tee very long, but the irons can be very hit or miss, so it's kind of interesting to see him that highly rated. And then if you're curious, who's number one at the highest percentage, right, of the shots coming at 175, 200, 25% of the shots that you are hitting on your approach come from this distance and is pretty crucial. So I was just curious, Taylor Pendrith, which was interesting to me. Again, very long, sometimes not that accurate. He has shown up from that 100-yard marker, but yeah, the Canadian. Ches Reavie, this was shocking, but I mean, he hits a lot of shots from that distance. And I know Ches is good from like 100 yards in too, like a Taylor Pendrith, but I never would have thought. And of course, he had out of nowhere that showing at the Valero, a 6th place finish, where I think he had 6 missed cuts beforehand. Trey Mullinax, also, usually pretty elite with the ball striking. He definitely has a lot of distance off the tee, but has shown up here or there. Recently, he also had his first one, which I always do this, and you guys know, and it's the Barbasol, the Barracuda, whatever it was. I believe it was actually the Barbasol. Colin Morikawa, Rahm, Rory, Lashley, Seabass, Keegan Bradley, Siwoo Kim, JJ Spawn, Nick Harding, Glover, Cam Young, Finau, and Xander. Those are the guys who have been the best over the past 6 tournaments from 175 to 200. A crucial stat area for this course. A lot of long approach shots. All right, and then as always, I do my comparable courses, and I'll talk you through this real fast. This is all of them, but so you understand, the left is, these two are Pete Dye courses. And of course, I've mentioned the stadium course, TPC Sawgrass, which I think fit from a yardage and from a par. And the field, this is a really good field. So the players make sense, but the Amex probably not so much. I also like the Charles Schwab where they play the Colonial. I think it's a very similar track, very wooded, got to be very accurate. Kind of fits more on that plotter side. Also has Bermuda greens. Wait a minute, I take that back. No, it doesn't. It has actually bent greens, so take that back. But the way the course plays, and pretty decent feels at the Charles Schwab. And then these over here, you don't get the strongest feels, but I think literally from a water perspective and yardage and the toughness, all that, I think probably the Honda, from my own personal perspective, is probably like course-to-course matchup is the closest. But again, the fields that we've been at the Honda have been terrible. And then you got RSM, maybe a little better fields, but it's a ball. Funny enough, Taylor Gooch won there. And again, I always, thought, more of a plotter, kind of got to be, you can't hit it in a bunch of water, but I would put Taylor Gooch in that ball striking kind of fit. And then the 3M Open, hence the whole Michael Thompson and Wawrinski, who's, had some good showings. Michael Thompson won the 3M. Even like a Cam Champ though, winner. So again, total different styles can get it done. With all that said, if you're curious, against my custom stat model, against those comp courses that I just talked about, Shane Lowry comes up number one. Adam Hadwin, over and over, I just keep seeing Adam Hadwin, so I guess I should just bet Adam Hadwin. Sun Jam, Finau, and also Lowry keeps showing up too. Corey Connor, Scheffler, Henley, Hoagie, Straka, Bradley, Svensson, the other Canadian, Webb Simpson, Rose, Chris Kirk, and Victor Hovland are against that model, showing up against those courses the last 36 rounds. So again, some of these guys have never played, like, probably haven't played the Honda or the RSM or the 3M Open in a while. Okay, so with all that said, of course, as always, I do some quick early betting. A lot of times, just like this, I bet these even probably before I did any of my research, going off just kind of looking at what the money line or where the odds are and what I'm thinking for my mind. And it's kind of a mixed breed here. So you got Tom Hoagie, an iron specialist, hits a lot of fairways, but the putter's pretty rough. I put Griot kind of in that, even though Griot really hasn't showed a whole lot at all. But we've seen this, right? We all know that PGA players are the best in the world. All these guys are the best, and they're never that far from just that switch flipping. Hence, like a Sam Burns, which we saw at the Dell Match Play, and hence the Valspar, where he's won multiple times. Actually, I think you get better odds in this, or were. It was, I think, 40-1 when I bet it. And all these might be a little bit different now. But so Richard Werenski, you guys know this is more of just a FOMO bet. Whenever I see Richie in an area, even though this is an elite field, and he has a 1 in a billion chance probably of winning this thing. Actually, I got him at 2,500-1 when I bet it. And just like, I've been putting little bets on him when I see certain little spots that I think he could do something. Same with Michael Thompson. I think I got him at like 400 or 500-1. So it's went down a little bit on those real big ones. Seabez was also 151 earlier this morning. I'm not a huge Seabez guy at all. You guys know this, but again, kind of fits that plot. Really good at chipping and putting. Where then I got some ball strikers in here. I've got my just super duper long shots that I just bet. I'm not telling you guys to bet on. If you want to put a buck on them, but I know that I'm wasting money pretty much every time I put anything on these guys. Andrew Putnam, right? I mean, we kept waiting for him to get a win. Did all right at the Dell Match Play. Got with pool play. A lot of that was around the green and putting, but that's what he does. And that's where I think, as one way you can win here, right? I talked about that around the green, and then, make your one putts. And he doesn't hit it long, but he's pretty accurate. Denny McCarthy, right? Also waiting on Denny to get that win, and also kind of fits that mold of, been a little more accurate, been a little better with the irons, but, we all know he's elite. And then Tommy Fleetwood came up at a few different things that I was running, and why not? It makes sense. I mean, again, I think he ended up 33rd in the Masters. Not the greatest Master, but not terrible. But has done well on these kind of tracks. And so, so that, again, this is not where I'm going to just completely end up. There's a few other ideas I have. But if you're curious, I'm just letting you guys know where my early bets are. And again, you can see leaning towards the long shots, which has not been paying off at all. Like I said, Kitayama, what was it? API was one of the better long shots this year. And I, for whatever reason, just totally missed that one and still kind of regret it, to be honest. But again, it's, in another elevated event that these guys played. And, as we know, it kind of takes the long shots out of play in theory, but you never know. I mean, also, again, with that, what you saw with Jordan Spieth, I do believe that maybe it might work out where some of these guys, which quite a few of these guys that are up there, didn't play the Masters. It might be fresh, and maybe they got here on Sunday and, are raring to go win the RBC. I mean, it is big FedEx points. I believe, I don't know if it's 700 for the elevated events, minimum 550, but I don't think it's 700. I think it's 550, but a huge purse, huge FedEx points. And that's it, guys. There's the cannon I was talking about, and I'm trying to figure who that is that's hitting that. That's got to be an older shot. I don't know who that is from behind, but maybe it's Graham McDowell. I know he won here a long time ago. But either here or there, I love this event. It's kind of exciting. It's kind of crazy. We're going to have quite a downturn. Like we got like the Zurich and the Mexico Open. I believe we got some bad stuff coming. So, we're coming off a high with the Dell Match Play, and then you got the Masters. Well, Valero was in there, but now we got the RBC, which I think is a great tournament. It's a great watch. Excited. One of my, favorite tournaments of the year. And then, we're going to have a lull. So, hey, let's keep it going. Let's hopefully keep on producing some money. for me, I didn't get into. It was a profitable Masters. Wasn't it? Of course, never is as good as what you hope. But long story short, as long as you are coming out positive, keeping that bankroll where you can keep, doing the DFS and the stuff, it's what it's all about. And hey, about having fun. As always, guys, thank you so much for spending time with me. I appreciate it greatly. Click that like button, subscribe if you're not a subscriber. The Masters was great to get the subscribe base up. We are getting really close to 2,000 subscribers, which, for some of you guys, I know that's like whatever, but for me, that's pretty impressive. So I'm going to keep pushing towards that. And anything you can do to help me out, I would appreciate that greatly. And click that. And also, if you'd like, follow me on Twitter at DFS Golf Guru, where I keep an eye on everything and keep you updated. And of course, put out anything funny that I see that you might be interested in. All right, guys. Tomorrow I'll come out with a pick show, and I might actually wait. I might do the picks and the before the lock. I might just do all one on Wednesday. So if you don't see something out tomorrow, it will be out Wednesday. Just be patient. All right, guys. Take care. Talk to you later.